Hi everyone. Well, it's late for me. It's 9:20. I just got home. Not home. I'm in a hotel room. So I guess I should explain how that came about. If you watched my video last time, I talked about that I was supposed to be put in the psych ward for a couple days while I undergo the first ECT session. And that freaked me out. I hated it. And I was so activated by the time I got to the hospital. But here's the cool thing is I explained the situation. Last time I was in a psych hospital, it was a Veterans Affairs thing, and it was incredibly traumatic, you know. Like I said, I had nightmares about it. And they were really sympathetic to that, and the intake coordinator talked with the doctor, and the doctor said, you know, what we could do is we'll admit her, and if you saw my tweet about that, we'll admit her, we'll run the test and the intake stuff, and then we'll let her go, and then she can go to a hotel room or whatever. And I was like, oh, thank you. Because when I got into the psych ward part, when they admitted me, it was fine. It looked really nice, but there was so much noise, and anyone who's sensitive to environmental stimuli, you can't shut it out. It's just everywhere, and it wasn't like people screaming like you would see in the movies. It was just people chanting, but there was such a cacophony, and I was so already that you know, even whispers were starting to hurt. It was literally my skin was starting. I could feel it. My skin start to burn. So I'm so glad that they allowed me to stay in a hotel room for the next couple of days, because I couldn't make it. In fact, they had to give me some diazepam. You know, partway through, I was there for like 8 hours getting tests run, like EKG and blood work, and you know, I had to do a maze, find the cheese, which was really, really hard. I got beat out by mice like 3 out of 4 times. I mean, how do you beat mice? No, I'm kidding. I didn't do that. It was just very overwhelming, and it would not have been good for me to stay there. So I'm glad they let me stay somewhere else. There is one thing that happened that was really impactful. So for those who don't know, I used to be a lecturer and taught college students, and believe it or not, this mess right here, I used to be a therapist. I actually used to work with mentally ill teenagers, and I loved them. My heart breaks for them. And there were 2 young women there who were, you know, 23 and 26, very young women starting their lives, and I got to know them, and I got to know their stories, and it was such an honor to be a part of that. To hear their pain, their struggles, and the similarities between us all. And I asked them, what did they like about being here? And it was beautiful. They both said they liked being there because there were other people just like them, and they weren't alone, you know. And that's such a powerful concept, because when we think about mental illness, you know, there's a lot of stigma attached, and for especially young people who are suffering from things like depression, most people in that ward were depression, suicide attempts, and so on. Most people don't have that sense of connection with others, because if you don't suffer from depression, it's hard to imagine what it's like. But also, you know, we talked about how depression affects relationships, you know. One was a mother, and one was, you know, trying to just make it, and they couldn't connect with outside social support. So thank you, friends, for being so patient. We talked about how depression just eats away at those relationships and puts so much pressure on them that they end up losing relationships. So it was amazing to just talk to them about, what they liked about being in the psych ward, what was helping them, what wasn't helping them, where they came from, where they hoped to go. And it was neat to see them use skills that they had learned in their group sessions and individual sessions. And my heart was broken for them and overjoyed that I could be a part of their lives, even for the short time I got to be a part of it. That was unexpected, and it reminded me how much I truly care about the struggles that young people suffer when it comes to mental illness or being LGBTQ or just not fitting in. And maybe someday, if I can conquer my illnesses, then maybe I can do some more work in that field. So I was there all day. I got my tests done. I talked to the psychiatrist who's going to be doing the electroconvulsive therapy. So tomorrow is my first session. Memory loss is the big one, and it seems to be the most common. Luckily, my therapist, how amazing is my therapist? My therapist is going to drive 2.5 hours to come be there with me. And so when I come out of it, because when you go into ECT, they put you under general anesthesia, and they give you a very hardcore muscle relaxant. So even though they're inducing a seizure, you really don't see anything, maybe a toe wiggle or something like that, because they just kind of shut you down. So it's only the brain going. But when you come out of general anesthesia and after having an induced seizure, there's periods of confusion and memory loss and things like that. And so my therapist is going to be there to help guide me and just help center me, make sure that I'm okay when I come out. And if this session works out well, then I'll be scheduling more, and who knows, maybe I'll kick this depression thing, or I'll just go back to drinking cough syrup, because apparently, and this was so funny, in fact I was dumbfounded because the psychiatrist was like, if it works for you, it was kind of neat validation. I chug cough syrup for my depression. Cool, glad it works. So anyways, I just wanted to give you an update on what was going on. Tomorrow's the big day. Going to freak out. There's some other things too, but I won't get into it. Anyways, please keep me in your thoughts. Thank you so much for everyone on Twitter who supported me, and thank you for my friends who called me and sent me messages throughout the day. It was, even though I couldn't get back to them because I was in a locked up ward for the day, it meant a lot to see all those responses. So thank you, and thank you, Secret World peeps. It's our home, right? Anyways, talk to you tomorrow.